Can you just elaborate on this a little bit, what you mean by living in an unreal world?
Sure. Part two is called The Unreal World, and I'm talking mainly about modern Western societies, and I call it that we're living in hypermodernity. And it's not a term that I've chosen, it's a term that some social philosophers have chosen. We're very familiar with postmodernity, and I agree that the name hypermodernity fits, because we're in an age now of the spectacle, the superfluous, of narcissism, of abstractness, frivolous nature. And this is kind of, I think, sums up the hypermodern, is that we kind of have access to everything, especially, as I say, in modern Western societies, but it's fleeting, it's not real. And also it's the illusion of having access to everything. We don't really have that access. And freedom, again, is part of that illusion. We have the freedom, we believe, as long as we stay within a certain parameters of this fleetingness. Once we start to go beyond it, we don't have that freedom, we're pulled inside. And this pullingness is towards a very superficial type of existence or attention, where we're not really seeking an inner dimension or a kind of groundedness. We're all being pushed outside onto these, spectacles of television, these live shows, these people making mockeries, or and all the news we get. We're being distracted. They're trying to say that let's talk about identity politics, let's talk about political correctness, and these are just these things bandied around, which, okay, they may have some worth in their own, but they're a distraction onto the much bigger picture. And then the next day, boom, that theme's gone, another one's coming, and it's just a kind of superfluous mix of events which don't really have the depth, but enough just to take our attention for that small fleeting moment. I think I used a quote from Umberto Eco, which I think has a nice summary. In the chapter The Spectacle of the Absurd, he says, "Appearance on the television screen is the only substitute for transcendence, and all in all, it's a satisfying substitute." Of course, it's tongue-in-cheek. And so I talk about this, it's like a spectre, and we're not really touching in depth in any way in modern societies. And that for me is seeming unreal. And that illusion and kind of hyper reality is increasing to the point where we've distanced ourselves from what may be a sense of reality. And many people don't or can't sense where that separation is. And we're now just in a kind of whole mass of, we've been told what to think, what to feel, what to absorb. There's another quote here from another social commentator, Ezio Moro from Italy. He said, "I live in connection with people's emotions, friends' sensations, strangers' reactions, with the information of the flow, the selections produced by social networks. I interpret, receive, feel and participate. I look at the images, I welcome confessions, I eschew insults, I receive emotions, I download songs. I put myself in the hands of the information that Facebook or Twitter favored and guaranteed, feeding it with followers and likes by a giant yet exclusive word of mouth. I absorb, therefore I know." Again, another kind of satirical way of looking at how the life has become, and that for me is an unreal world, and we live, or many people live, those unreal lives.
For marketers, it's a very well-known fact now that if someone wants to put a content on social networks, the very first 20 seconds is the longest time that they can grab the attention of people. So this is where we are at now, that the competition for the attention of people goes for 20 seconds or even maybe just 3 seconds, and then people lose their interest if something is not exciting enough or is not talking to them. But also in this overwhelming flow of information and grabbing attention from people is very hard actually for many people to disconnect from it, because obviously then everybody who is on this market are trying to use that 3 second or 20 second to make their products or message impossible not to continue watching it.
There's a kind of almost addiction for attention. People need to have this attention onto something, which then of course supply and demand, the marketeers can supply something which takes your attention very quickly, and then to give you something else, then to give something else. It's like a continual kind of high. I give you high for this attention, and then after, like you say, 20 seconds or 3 minutes, whatever, I give you high another attention. So people are getting their fixes externally. Why? You said that this attention actually kind of dislocates people. Well, the reason is because internally many of us are dislocated. We're separated from our sense of self. We're separated from the source of who we are. And so that splintering inside of ourselves is mirrored by an external splintering. Therefore, we want to connect with something. And we're actually conditioned not to connect inward, but to connect outward. That's part of the wounded mind's conditioning. So therefore, we are wanting to find this coming together, this unity, because we have this innate feeling of being splintered and separated. But instead of going inward for that, we go out, and then we go out, and then boom, boom, we get our fixes, our superfluous healing by going out to these external sources.
There are many external sources actually whom are promising that by connecting to them they will help people to find the inside.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and this is the kind of the commercial side of spiritualism. For example, that people are so ready to give their personal power away by seeking anyone who says, I will be able to give it to you. And this is what I've before kind of tongue-in-cheek referred to as Ashram Avenue and Guru Boulevard, in that so many people are going down these avenues and boulevards wanting to have confirmation from these external sources because they lack the self-trust and the focus to give themselves worth, to find that source of power within themselves. And so the reason why the spiritual marketplace is so popular these days, because there's such a demand for it, and it's become another aspect of capitalism. Whereas that should be a telling sign that people in general are lacking something quite significant because of that need. But we need to take that in our own hands and find that within ourselves. And that is also part of the whole process of trying to decondition from the main dominant narrative and mindset.